Oh my God! As someone who spent a good chunk of my life shooting, testing defensive loads, and watching the political winds shift, I've seen the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, or the ATF, as most of us call it, play a dangerous game. One of the most worrying trends is how they twist and turn their own interpretations of long-standing laws to clamp down on ammo that's been legal for decades. Take what happened close to 10 years back. They set their sights on a common rifle cartridge not because the round itself had changed, but because the ATF up and decided to read the rulebook in a whole new light. That kind of flip-flopping ought to raise eyebrows for anyone who values consistency and fairness in how the law gets applied. That same playbook's still being used today, and from the looks of it, a few high-performance handgun loads might be next in the agency's crosshairs. We're talking about three of the most trusted defensive rounds out there: Speer Gold Dot, Federal Hydra-Shok, and Hornady Critical Defense. These are the kind of cartridges folks rely on every day, whether they're carrying concealed, protecting their homes, or wearing a badge. But here's the kicker: the very features that make these loads so dependable might now be used against them. You've got bonded jackets that keep the bullet together after impact, polymer tips that help the round expand right, center posts designed to stop clogging when shooting through fabric or barriers. All those things make them smart choices for self-defense. But when regulators start looking for reasons to tighten the noose, they'll twist those same traits into claims of so-called armor-piercing potential. And that ought to make every honest gun owner stop and take notice. To really grasp the risk here, you've got to take a hard look at the ATF's own rulebook. The way they classify ammo hinges on two things: whether it can be used in a handgun, and whether it's got materials or design features they decide are too much for civilian hands. That vague old sporting purpose language, that's been their favorite catch all for years. Just think back to what happened with the 7N6 round, a Russian military cartridge that plenty of American shooters had been using without issue. Then someone built a pistol that could chamber it, and the ATF did a full 180. Slapping a ban on it, the bullet didn't change one bit. What changed was the gun folks were shooting it out of. And that same twisted logic could now be turned against the modern defensive loads we count on today. Take Speer's Gold Dot line, for example. This stuff was purpose-built for duty use from the ground up. It's engineered to chew through barriers like car glass or plywood without coming apart, exactly the kind of traits the Federal Bureau of Investigation deemed essential when they adopted the SS-109 projectile, better known to most of us as M855 green tip. In testing, Gold Dot regularly meets the 12-inch minimum for gel penetration and often stretches out closer to 18 inches, all while keeping its weight and mushrooming out to better than half an inch wide. For folks who carry every day, performance like that builds real confidence. But for an agency like the ATF, that's willing to weaponize the so-called sporting use clause. That same performance checks just about every box for future restriction. And the concern don't stop there. Gold Dot ain't limited to one flavor. It's loaded in just about everything you'll find it in: 9mm, Port 38, Special Plus P, 45 automatic Colt pistol, 10mm auto, and rifle rounds like .223, Remington, 300 Blackout, and even .308 Winchester. That widespread makes it even more vulnerable. The ATF's already made it clear that original design intent don't matter much anymore. What they care about now is whether that bullet can be fired out of a handgun. And now that we've got AR-style pistols sending downrange what used to be rifle-only cartridges, well, that opens the door for a whole lot of ammo to get reclassified. That's exactly what happened back in 2015 when they nearly banned green tip just cause it could be fired from a pistol, even though it had been legal for over 30 years. It took a massive public outcry to get them to back down, but the legal structure they used to justify it, that's still on the books. If they ever decide to make an example out of so-called excessively capable ammo, especially something associated with law enforcement, but still sold to the public, Gold Dot's got a big old target on its back. Its proven performance, wide availability, and cross-platform use make it one of the most visible loads out there. And once again, it wouldn't be the round itself that changed. It'd be the politics and how the rules get reworded behind closed doors. This ain't fear-mongering. It's a reality check. Anyone who carries every day, hunts, or keeps a modern defensive rifle or pistol at home ought to be watch. In these moves real close. Now, looking through the eyes of a seasoned American gun owner who's paid attention to how ammo laws keep shifting, Federal's Hydra-Shok tells a story worth paying attention to. It all started in the wake of the 1986 Miami shootout, a tragic firefight that shook up the Federal Bureau of Investigation and exposed the flaws in hollow points that failed to expand after passing through heavy clothing. Tom Berchinski stepped up with a solution, a unique center post inside the hollow cavity that forced fluid outward into the jacket walls. That design made sure expansion would happen, even at lower speeds. When the FBI updated its test standards in the late 1980s, Hydra-Shok got reworked to meet those specs, and it quickly became the gold standard that other defensive rounds were measured against. But here's the twist. What started as a strength may now be a liability. Because Hydra-Shok was built at the request of a federal law enforcement agency, it fits the criteria laid out in the ATF Sporting Purpose Framework from 2015, the one that calls for extra scrutiny on rounds born from military or police needs. That document specifically flags cartridges offered in concealable calibers like .32 automatic Colt pistol, .380 9mm, or even .44 Magnum as potential problems. Hydra-Shok is loaded in all those calibers and more, which checks the first box: it can be fired from a handgun. And that's one of the biggest triggers for armor-piercing review under current ATF interpretation. The next part comes down to what the bullet's made of. Right now, Hydra-Shok uses a traditional lead core setup. But with more and more states pushing for lead-free mandates, manufacturers could be forced to switch to solid copper or brass. And that's where things get dicey. Under the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act, what folks call LEOPA, any projectile made from certain hard metals like brass or copper, fired from a handgun and capable of piercing armor, can be labeled as restricted. So if Federal ever updates Hydra-Shok to meet those green ammo laws, they could unintentionally walk that round straight into a federal ban. And even though Hydra-Shok's never been tied to any actual vest penetration incidents, a nearly identical pattern already played out with the 7N6 cartridge, an old Russian 5.45 by 39 military round. Back in 2016, the ATF shut down its import after someone built a pistol that could chamber it. The importer pushed back in court, arguing that the ammo had never been used against law enforcement. But the judge sided with the ATF, saying the potential for armor penetration was enough, even if it had never happened in the real world. That ruling locked in the ATF's authority to ban just about any round they say meets their criteria. And if that round can be shot from a handgun, well, that's all the excuse they need. Now, Hornady's Critical Defense line might look a little safer at first glance. It's built with a soft polymer tip called FTX that helps ensure expansion even when fired from short-barreled pistols. That makes it popular with folks living in apartments or tight spaces who want to avoid overpenetration. But that bright red tip? It's easy to show on camera and easy for anti-gun lawmakers or media talking heads to frame as something dangerous or sinister. What complicates things more is where those FTX bullets show up. They're in everything from traditional lever guns like the .30-30 Winchester to pocket pistol calibers. That kind of platform versatility is exactly what triggered all the noise back in 2015, when lawmakers grilled then ATF Director Todd Jones about overregulating flexible use ammo. Those senators made a fair point. When you start restricting rounds used across multiple firearms, you're punishing everyday shooters, chipping away at rights, and ignoring the fact that most of us just want reliable ammo we can use in more than one gun. But those same senators also flagged a coming storm environmental lawsuits aimed at banning lead outright. And that's the real kicker, cause the minute ammo makers switch over to solid copper for hunting or defensive use. They're walking right into the very category the ATF considers exotic under its armor-piercing rules. So even rounds like Critical Defense, originally built for safer use indoors or in urban settings, could get the ban hammer once they swap to a lead-free design. The ATF still holds the power to deny exemptions to any ammo they feel isn't primarily intended for sporting purposes. And that phrase? It's so loosely written, it could be twisted to cover nearly every modern hollow point on the market. What started out as a way to protect law enforcement has quietly turned into a legal minefield for millions of responsible gun owners. From where I sit as someone who's spent years shooting, studying, and following the shifting sands of ammo regulation, we're looking at a slow, steady creep. A kind of regulatory drift that could one day pull tried and true defensive loads like Gold Dot, Hydra-Shok, and Critical Defense right into the crosshairs of federal overreach. Now, to be fair, there ain't been any formal declaration from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives going after these loads directly. But given the ATF's long history of bending laws without congressional say-so, all in the name of officer safety, it ain't hard to see where this road might lead. And this ain't some theoretical boogeyman. The ATF's known for changing course by posting rulings straight to the Federal Register, skipping public debate or legislative process altogether. We've been down this trail before. Remember back in 2015 when they tried reclassifying M855 green tip? That move triggered a tidal wave of public backlash and forced Congress to step in. The push got paused, but here's the part folks forget. The framework behind that whole effort was never torn down. It's still sitting there, ready to be used again. So let's take a hard look at what's really on the line. Gold Dot's big claim to fame is its bonded jacket. That construction keeps the bullet from coming apart and allows for deep, reliable expansion. Hydra-Shok, with its center post, was built to punch through thick clothing and still open up. And Hornady's Critical Defense uses that FTX polymer tip to resist clogging and work well in short-barreled pistols, exactly what a concealed carrier needs. None of these were built to defeat armor. None are made from tungsten, steel core, or exotic brass alloys like the real armor piercers out there. These rounds were built to stop threats, plain and simple, but under the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act, intent doesn't matter. It's all about construction. If a bullet is fired from a handgun and is made of certain metals, or if the jacket accounts for more than 1/4 of the projectile's total weight, it can be labeled armor-piercing, even if it never pierced a vest in the real world. Here's the kicker. If bonded copper ever gets redefined as a restricted material, rounds like Gold Dot or future lead-free versions of Hydra-Shok and Critical Defense could fall square into that trap. And what makes it worse is the way certain politicians and media folks twist the truth. Hollow points get painted as cop killers, even though soft body armor stops them consistently in real-world incidents. But public opinion don't always follow the science. If a defensive round is known to be used by both police and concealed carriers, and if it gets marketed with phrases like tactical stopping power or enhanced penetration, that language can be twisted into so-called evidence of excessive lethality. The ATF's method ain't about brute force, it's a slow roll. They start with rounds that few folks will fight for surplus steel core or obscure foreign ammo. Then they test the waters. If folks don't push back, the next targets are the ones we all actually use. Bonded handgun rounds like Gold Dot, polymer-tipped bullets like Critical Defense, Center post designs like Hydra-Shok, especially once those rounds go green and ditch the lead. Look at Hydra-Shok Deep. It's a refined version built for even better penetration while still expanding. But in a world where bureaucrats care more about theoretical risk than real misuse like what we saw in that, 76 court decision up in Seattle performance upgrades can get you flagged, not praised. Sure, we got a breather back when Congress stepped in during the green tip debate. But political cover don't last forever. Administrations change, priorities shift, and it only takes one high-profile shooting, one bad headline to kickstart a new wave of restrictions. And the ammo they'll come after first? The stuff everyday Americans rely on most. That's why staying alert ain't just smart, it's necessary. Stock up on the trusted ammo you rely on before the rules start shifting. Keep an eye on ATF proposals when they open up those public comment periods. And don't forget to remind your elected officials that the right to bear arms don't mean much without the ammo to make it count. Defending our freedoms means doing more than just talking about them. The truth is, the agency counts on folks not paying attention, but it's our vigilance, our refusal to sit quiet, that keeps government overreach in check. To put it plain, Gold Dot, Hydra-Shok, and Critical Defense might be the top of the heap today when it comes to personal protection. But it's that very reputation, their wide use, and standout performance that also puts a target on their backs. The better the round, the more likely it ends up under the microscope. That's just how the game's played now.